El viejo Rusty no había tocado una sola pieza de comida en 7 días, pero lo que encontró Jeremiah Crow, en el fondo de donde se colocaba el perro, cambiaría todo lo que pensaba que sabía de su propia tierra. El sol de la mañana cae en las sombras a lo largo del hogar de Crow, mientras Jeremiah se acerca al pensillo de perro cargando una bolsa de fresco. El viejo Rusty, su perro privilegiado, se queda sin movimiento en la esquina lejana de su encuaderno. Su cuerpo colorado, de rostro masivo, presionado contra la misma pata de suerte que había reclamado durante la semana pasada. Jeremiah colocó la bolsa con un golpe fuerte. El perro ni siquiera levantó la cabeza. Esto no era como el viejo Rusty. El animal siempre había sido el primero a encargarse de cualquier señal de comida, sonriendo y gritando con entusiasmo. Ahora está ahí como una estatua, su respiración suave pero firme. «Vamos, chico, Jeremiah», murmuró. Se acercaba a la parte de al lado del animal. Llegaron sus manos calientes a lo largo de la esquina del viejo Rusty, sintiéndose los huesos que se estaban empezando a mostrar debajo de la oscuridad. «Te vas a arruinar de nada si mantienes esto». Los ojos oscuros del perro se abrieron brevemente, reuniéndose con la mirada de Jeremiah, con una intensidad que hizo el agricultor pausar. Había algo casi humano en ese aspecto, algo desesperado y determinado. Luego el viejo Rusty cerró los ojos de nuevo y presionó su ojo más cerca al suelo. Jeremiah se levantó limpiando la tierra de sus pies. Había probado todo durante la semana pasada. Carne fresca, espaguetis de cocina, incluso algunos de los alimentos caros de la ciudad. Nada funcionaba. El perro olía a la comida a veces, incluso se levantaba, pero luego volvió a ese mismo lugar exacto y se sentó de nuevo. Molly apareció en el fenómeno. Su cara preocupada, formada por huesos de pelo rojo que habían escapado de su pan de mañana. Ella agarró su cabello más cerrado contra el aire caliente. ¿Algo ha cambiado?, preguntó, aunque su tono sugirió que ya sabía la respuesta. Jeremiah se levantó. Estúpido como un pájaro. No va a escapar de ese lugar por más de 1 minuto o 2. Tal vez deberíamos enviar a Doc Peterson. A veces le trata a los animales. Doc Peterson tiene las manos llenas con el bebé Miller. Además, ¿qué nos va a decir? Que nuestros perros perdieron su apetito, Jeremiah. Tomó el bocetazo sin tocar. Los animales se enferman, se mejoran o no se mejoran. Pero incluso cuando le dijo las palabras, Jeremiah sentía una sensación de incertidumbre en su cuello. Ese no era solo un animal enfermo. El viejo Rusty estaba protegiendo algo, guardando ese pato de tierra como si su vida dependiera de él. Cuando Jeremiah caminó de vuelta hacia la casa, no notó que el viejo Rusty levantó su cabello un poco mirándolo ir. Los ojos de los perros tenían un aspecto conocido, como si estaba esperando por algo, como si sabía exactamente qué estaba debajo de la tierra donde había elegido hacer su parada. La pregunta era si Jeremiah lo sabría antes de que fuera demasiado tarde. Al segundo día, los cabellos del viejo Rusty se estaban volviendo más visibles a través de su escasez. Jeremiah se encontró mirando al perro cada poco de horas cada visita, confirmando su creciente miedo de que algo estaba mal. El animal había barranco movido de su lugar elegido, solo cambiando ocasionalmente para ajustar su posición, pero nunca se movía más de un par de pulgadas de esa parte particular de la tierra. Fue como si estuviera anclado allí por alguna fuerza invisible. Jeremiah se bajó y examinó el suelo más cercano. El suelo parecía bastante ordinario, tal vez un poco más suave que el área alrededor, pero nada que explicara la obsesión del viejo Rusty. Presionó su palo contra la tierra sintiéndose por algo inusual. El suelo cayó un poco bajo presión, pero eso podría ser de la pesadilla del perro durante la semana pasada. ¿Qué estás ocultando, chico?, Jeremiah gritó. El viejo Rusty abrió los ojos y los fijó en la cara de Jeremiah. Por un momento el agricultor podría haber asegurado que el perro estaba tratando de comunicar algo urgente, algo importante. La respiración del animal se volvió más pesada, casi agitada, como si estuviera frustrado por su incapacidad de hablar. La voz de Molly se llevó a través del jardín de la ventana de la cocina. Jeremiah, Mrs. Henderson, está aquí. Jeremiah sollozó y le dio a el viejo Rusty una última patada antes de irse hacia la casa. Eleanor Henderson, su vecino más cercano, estaba en la pared del frente agarrando un vaso de lo que olía a pan fresco. Su cara deshidratada se cruzó con preocupación. «He oído de tus problemas con el perro», ella dijo sin preámbulos. «Creí que podrías usar un poco de sustancia mientras los arreglas. Agradezco eso, Eleanor, aunque estoy empezando a pensar que no hay mucho que arreglar». Eleanor's sharp eyes studied his face. «Animals know things sometimes. Things we can't see or understand. My grandfather used to say that when an animal won't leave a spot, there's usually a reason. What kind of reason could be anything? Something buried. Something that happened there once upon a time." She lowered her voice. "Something that needs to be found." Jeremiah felt a chill run down his spine, but he forced a laugh. "Come now, Eleanor. You sound like you're talking about ghosts and spirits. I'm talking about instincts. Jeremiah Crow, that pig of yours has instincts you and I lost a long time ago." She handed him the basket. "Mark my words, that animal's trying to tell you something. Question is, are you listening?" After Eleanor left, Jeremiah found himself drawn back to the pig pen. Old Rusty lay in the same position, but his eyes were open, watching, waiting. The farmer stared at the patch of ground beneath the pig. Eleanor's words echoing in his mind. Something buried, something that needed to be found. But what could possibly be buried in his own pig pen that would matter enough for an animal to starve himself protecting it? The third day brought rain, turning the pig pen into a muddy mess. Jeremiah expected old Rusty to seek shelter in the covered area of the enclosure, but the pig remained stubbornly in place, letting the cold water soak through his thick hide. Jeremiah splashed through the mud carrying a tarp to cover the animal. As he draped it over old Rusty's back, he noticed something that made his breath catch. The rain had softened the ground around the pig, and the earth seemed to be settling differently in that one spot, creating a slight depression that hadn't been there before. "Molly," he called toward the house. "Bring me that old shovel from the barn." His wife appeared in the doorway, hair dampened by the drizzle. "What for?" "Just bring it." When Molly arrived with the tool, Jeremiah was already on his hands and knees, feeling around the edges of where old Rusty lay. The pig watched him intently, but didn't move, even as Jeremiah's probing hands came close to his body. "Jeremiah, what are you doing?" Molly asked, clutching her shawl against the rain. "The ground here, it's different, softer, like it's been disturbed before." He took the shovel from her hands. "I'm gonna take a little look." "You can't dig under the pig." "I'm not gonna dig under him, just around him, see what's what." Jeremiah carefully inserted the shovel blade into the mud about 2 feet from old Rusty's head. The tool sank in easily, much easier than it should have in ground that had been packed down by weather and time. He pulled up a shovelful of dark, rich earth that looked different from the clay-heavy soil that dominated the rest of their property. Old Rusty lifted his head and watched Jeremiah's every movement. When the farmer moved the shovel closer to the pig's body, the animal's breathing became more agitated, almost excited. "There's definitely something here," Jeremiah muttered, digging out another shovelful. "This dirt's been moved before. Recently too, by the look of it." Molly stepped closer, her earlier skepticism replaced by curiosity. "How recently?" "Hard to say. Could be months, could be years. But somebody dug here and they filled it back in." He paused, wiping rain from his face. "Question is, what did they bury?" As if in response to his words, old Rusty struggled to his feet for the first time in days. The pig stood shakily, his legs trembling from weakness, but his eyes were bright and alert. He took a step back from his guarded spot as if giving Jeremiah permission to continue. The farmer looked at his wife, then back at the pig. "I think he wants me to dig. That's the craziest thing I ever heard." "Maybe, but look at him." Old Rusty was still standing still, watching his massive head nodding slightly, as if encouraging Jeremiah to keep going. The farmer gripped the shovel tighter and prepared to dig deeper. Whatever was buried beneath his pig pen, Old Rusty had been guarding it with his life, and now he was ready to let it be found. The fourth day brought more questions than answers. Jeremiah had managed to dig down nearly 3 feet before darkness forced him to stop the previous evening. The hole revealed nothing but more of that strange dark soil that clearly didn't belong to his property. Old Rusty had finally eaten a small portion of food, but only after Jeremiah had started digging. The pig positioned himself at the edge of the hole, watching every shovelful of earth that came up as if inspecting it for something specific. "This is getting out of hand," Molly said, bringing Jeremiah a cup of coffee as he prepared to resume digging. "Half the county's gonna think you've lost your mind digging up your pig pen based on what an animal wants." Jeremiah wiped sweat from his forehead, leaving a streak of mud across his brow. "Maybe I have lost my mind, but that pig knows something we don't." "Animals don't know things, Jeremiah. They just act on instinct." "Then explain to me why he's eating again now that I started digging. Explain why he won't leave this spot alone." Molly had no answer for that. Old Rusty was indeed showing signs of improvement, though he still spent most of his time lying near the hole as if standing guard. By midday, Jeremiah's shovel hit something solid, not rock, not root, but something that gave off a dull metallic sound when struck. His heart began to race as he cleared away more dirt, revealing the corner of what appeared to be a wooden crate wrapped in oiled canvas. "Molly!" He called, his voice tight with excitement and fear. "You need to see this." His wife came running from the house, her skirts hiked up to avoid the mud. When she saw what Jeremiah had uncovered, her face went pale. "What is it?" "Don't know yet. Help me get it out." Together they worked to unearth the crate. It was smaller than Jeremiah had expected, maybe 2 feet long and a foot wide, but heavy enough that it took both of them to lift it from the hole. The canvas wrapping was still intact, protecting whatever lay inside from moisture and decay. Old Rusty stood at the edge of the hole, watching intently as they set the crate on level ground. The pig's breathing was rapid, almost excited, as if he knew they were close to discovering something important. Jeremiah's hands trembled slightly as he began to unwrap the canvas. "Who do you suppose buried this here and when?" Molly added. "This land's been in your family for 15 years, maybe longer than that. Maybe whoever buried this was here before we were." The canvas fell away, revealing a wooden crate with rope handles and a simple latch. There were no markings on the outside, nothing to indicate what it contained or who had put it there. Jeremiah looked at his wife, then at Old Rusty, who was practically vibrating with anticipation. The pig had stopped eating for 7 days to guard this spot. He'd nearly starved himself to protect whatever was inside this crate. "You think we should open it?" Molly whispered. Before Jeremiah could answer, they heard the sound of approaching horses. 3 riders were coming up the road toward their homestead, moving with purpose and speed. Jeremiah quickly threw the canvas back over the crate. "Help me get this inside, quick." But even as they struggled to carry their mysterious discovery toward the house, Jeremiah couldn't shake the feeling that they were too late. Someone else knew about what Old Rusty had been guarding, and they were coming to claim it. The 3 riders reined in their horses at the edge of the Crow property. Jeremiah recognized the lead man immediately, Samuel Voss, a local businessman who owned several properties in the area. The 2 men flanking him were strangers, hard-looking types with the kind of eyes that had seen too much violence. Jeremiah and Molly had barely managed to get the crate inside the house before the riders arrived. Old Rusty, as if sensing danger, had retreated to the far corner of his pen, but continued watching the visitors with suspicious eyes. "Afternoon, Jeremiah," Voss called out, dismounting from his black gelding. His expensive coat and polished boot stood out sharply against the muddy farmyard. "Heard you've been doing some digging. Nothing unusual about a man working his own land," Jeremiah replied, stepping out onto his porch. Molly remained behind him, her hand resting on the doorframe. No, I suppose there isn't. Voss's smile was cold and calculating. Mind if we take a look around? I'm interested in purchasing this property, and I'd like to assess its condition. Property's not for sale. Everything's for sale, Jeremiah. It's just a matter of price. Voss gestured to his companions. These gentlemen represent some investors from back east. They're very interested in this particular piece of land. Jeremiah felt a chill run down his spine. What makes this land so special? Oh, you'd be surprised what can be valuable to the right people. Old battlefields, former campsites, places where important things might have been left behind. The way Voss emphasized those last words made it clear he knew exactly what Jeremiah had found. But how could he know, unless... You've been watching us. Jeremiah said, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. Let's just say I keep track of activities in the area, especially when they involve digging in very specific locations. Voss took a step closer to the porch. Now I'm willing to make you a very generous offer for this property, enough money to buy twice as much land somewhere else. And if I refuse... One of Voss's companions rested his hand on the butt of his pistol. The gesture was subtle, but unmistakable. I'd hate for this to become unpleasant, Voss said. You have a lovely wife, a nice home. It would be a shame if anything happened to disturb this peaceful life you've built. Jeremiah's jaw tightened. You threatening my family, I'm offering you a business proposition. The smart thing would be to accept it. From inside the house came a loud crash, followed by Molly's startled cry. Jeremiah spun around to see his wife backing away from the kitchen table, where the wooden crate had somehow fallen to the floor. The impact had broken one corner of the box, revealing a glint of something metallic inside. Voss's eyes locked onto the broken crate through the open doorway. His cold smile widened. Well, well, it looks like you've already found what we came for. He signaled to his men. Gentlemen, I believe it's time we collected our property. Jeremiah stepped between Voss and the doorway. That crate came from my land, makes it mine by right. Actually, Voss said, pulling a folded paper from his coat. I think you'll find the legal situation is a bit more complicated than that. But before he could elaborate, old Rusty let out a sound unlike anything Jeremiah had ever heard from the pig. A deep, rumbling bellow that seemed to shake the very air around them. Old Rusty's bellow was followed by the thundering of hooves. At least a dozen riders crested the hill behind the house, moving fast toward the homestead. Voss's confident expression faltered as he recognized the lead rider, Sheriff Marcus Delaney, a man known for his unwavering sense of justice. Seems like you've got more company than expected, Jeremiah said, relief flooding through him. Voss shot a sharp look at his companions who had tensed at the sight of the approaching lawman. This isn't over, Crow. Sheriff Delaney dismounted before his horse had fully stopped, his hand resting casually on his gun belt. He was a tall man with graying hair and eyes that missed nothing. Samuel Voss. The sheriff said, his tone neutral but watchful. Didn't expect to find you out here. Just conducting some business, Sheriff. Nothing that concerns the law. Funny thing about that. Got a report this morning about some men asking questions around town. Questions about the old Mackenzie place. Delaney's gaze shifted to Jeremiah. This used to be Mackenzie land, didn't it? Before your family bought it? Jeremiah nodded. Bought it from the bank after old Connor Mackenzie died. Been here 15 years now. Connor Mackenzie, Voss said quickly. Never legally owned this property. My clients have documents proving their prior claim. Sheriff Delaney held out his hand. I'd like to see those documents. As Voss reluctantly produced the papers, Molly appeared at Jeremiah's side, her face pale but determined. She whispered urgently in her husband's ear, "The crate. There are papers inside it. And gold. Lots of gold." Jeremiah's eyes widened, but he kept his expression neutral as the sheriff examined Voss's documents. These papers, Delaney said slowly. "They're dated last week. Awful convenient timing, wouldn't you say? My clients recently discovered their family's historical claim to this land." "Family claim, you say?" The sheriff looked thoughtful. "What family would that be?" Voss hesitated just long enough for Jeremiah to realize the man was making this up as he went along. The Morrison family, from back east." Sheriff Delaney nodded slowly, then turned to Jeremiah. "Mind if I take a look at what you found out there? Heard you've been doing some digging." Before Jeremiah could answer, Molly stepped forward. "Sheriff, I think you need to see what's inside that crate. There are papers in there too. Old papers." Voss moved as if to protest, but found himself facing the barrel of the sheriff's Colt. "Now, Samuel, no need to get excited. We're just going to take a look at some old documents. Nothing wrong with that, is there?" Inside the house, Jeremiah carefully opened the damaged crate while Sheriff Delaney and his deputies watched. Voss and his men waited under guard on the porch. The contents made everyone in the room draw in sharp breaths. Gold coins filled most of the space, but wrapped in oiled cloth were several documents. As Jeremiah unfolded them, he could see they were land deeds, mining claims, and what appeared to be a confession letter. Sheriff Delaney picked up the letter and read aloud. "If anyone finds this, know that Samuel Voss murdered Connor Mackenzie for these claims and buried them here thinking no one would ever find them. Connor Mackenzie was my friend, and I couldn't let his killer profit from his death. Thomas Garrett, witness." The silence in the room was deafening. Through the window they could see Voss's face had gone white. "Well," Sheriff Delaney said quietly, "I think we just solved a 15-year-old murder case." Outside, old Rusty had finally left his post by the hole and was eating heartily from his trough. As if his long vigil was finally over, the confession letter revealed the full truth of what had happened 15 years ago. Thomas Garrett, Connor Mackenzie's closest friend, had witnessed Voss murder the old man for his mining claims and land deeds. Fearing for his own life, Garrett had stolen the documents and gold from Voss's office and buried them in the pig pen, knowing that someday the truth would need to come to light. Sheriff Delaney placed Voss and his men under arrest as the sun began to set over the Crow homestead. The businessman's carefully constructed lies crumbled as more evidence came forward. Other townspeople who had suspected something was wrong when Connor Mackenzie died so suddenly, and Voss had immediately claimed the man's most valuable properties. "How did you know to come here today?" Jeremiah asked the sheriff as they watched the prisoners being loaded into a wagon. "Got a visit from Eleanor Henderson this morning. She said something strange was happening out here, and knowing Eleanor, I figured it was worth investigating." Delaney tipped his hat. "Good thing, too. Voss has been getting away with murder for too long." As the law enforcement convoy disappeared down the road, Jeremiah and Molly stood in their yard, still trying to process everything that had happened. The gold coins and mining claims legally belonged to Connor Mackenzie's estate, which meant they would need to track down any living relatives. "What about the pig?" Molly asked, watching old Rusty contentedly rooting around his pen. "How did he know?" Jeremiah shook his head in wonder. "Animals sense things we can't understand. Maybe he could smell something different about that ground. Maybe he just knew something wasn't right. Or maybe," Molly said softly, Connor Mackenzie's spirit was guiding him, making sure the truth finally came out. They learned later that Connor Mackenzie had no living relatives. According to territorial law, since Jeremiah had legitimately purchased the property and the treasure was found on his land, he was entitled to keep both the gold and the mining claims. The amount was enough to secure their family's future for generations. But perhaps more importantly, a 15-year-old injustice had finally been corrected. Connor Mackenzie could rest in peace knowing his killer had been brought to justice. Old Rusty returned to his normal routine, eating well and growing fat again on kitchen scraps and fresh slop. But sometimes in the early morning light, Jeremiah would catch the pig standing over the filled-in hole as if paying his respects to the man whose secret he had guarded so faithfully. The Crow family prospered from their unexpected fortune, but they never forgot the lesson old Rusty had taught them. Sometimes the most important truths are buried just beneath our feet, waiting for someone brave enough to dig for them. And sometimes the most unlikely guardians are the ones who ensure those truths eventually see the light of day. Years later, when people in town talked about the strange case of the pig who solved a murder, Jeremiah would smile and give old Rusty an extra helping of food. After all, the pig had earned it. If you enjoyed this story of old Rusty and the buried truth, please consider subscribing to our channel and leaving a super chat. If you'd like to support us in bringing you more incredible tales from the American frontier, your support helps us continue sharing these amazing stories. Click on the video appearing on your screen now to watch another incredible Western story that will keep you on the edge of your seat until the very last moment.